Hi, and welcome to another edition of winemastery.co.uk. We're here to try and get you to the wine you like as quickly as possible. This is part 3 of episode number 6, and we're trying Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you've already missed the first 2, take a look at them. You can wait till you watch this one if you like. I don't think that will matter. But what's the third one, John?
Right, our third Cabernet Sauvignon of today is going to be, we're moving to Australia.
Australia?
Yeah, now Australians, they are, their signature grape would be the Shiraz, which, you know, if you keep watching throughout the weeks, we'll get to Shiraz and we'll have a taste of that. But I do think they make a fantastic Cabernet Sauvignon also. It's all down to the kind of the climate, you know, you need that, the kind of nice hot weather gives you the kind of bigger, juicy berries, the heavier flavours in there. And of course Australia does have that kind of climate. So,
because Australia's a massive, almost like Europe in terms of its physical size.
Yeah.
So does Australian wine, is it the same, or actually different parts produce different?
No, again, different parts will produce different or better quality of grapes. We're actually, this is southern Australia, Coonamarra. And you've got like Western Australia, you've got the West River, there's lots of different spots within there, but as I say, down in the south here, these have got the kind of warmer climate and as such produce the Cabernet Sauvignon a wee bit better. Also they do have a nice Shiraz as well.
Okay.
There. But today we're going to go on the Cab Sauv.
And in terms of the Cab Sauv, is that in terms of France? Do they use Cabernet Sauvignon? And if it is, what sort of? Because they go by regions rather than grape, don't they?
They do. I mean, obviously, in France is a very, very complicated kind of.
Is that too? We'll get into that later then, shall we?
Yeah, it's an unusual one. We'll definitely touch upon that later, but it's quite. Yeah, it's quite unusual. They name it through the areas which produce certain grapes, and they do make it a bit difficult, but it is easy once we get into that. But yeah, most places do kind of name the wine purely by the grape that obviously that they're producing. So let's have a little go at this one.
Okay.
Now again, we can see that it's getting darker still.
Only a shade, yeah? It's not much darker.
Well, I think it's got this one around the edges, instead of like almost a bright purple, this is a more tawny kind of colour, you know, just going towards the edge, which is interesting, which is now going to suggest to me...
Is that interesting because you weren't expecting that?
It is. I was expecting, half expecting it, but from what we've had already, they were kind of a brighter, sharper kind of colour, whereas this one, although it's not, it's kind of almost, that tawny colour almost makes it look a little bit more dull.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's even more powerful than the last. Yeah?
It is. I'm quite pleased with that. I'm really pleased with that. Now this is what, you see, this is typically what a lot of people, when they're first starting with the red wine, or people say they don't like red wine, they say they can smell like rubbery. And I can understand that rubbery smell, but I would translate that more as a kind of probably leather. He's got a kind of a smell of leather about it, and there's definitely the earthiness in there as well. It's much more earthy than what we've had already. Oh wow, that is really quite.
It's actually making my mouth water as I spoke.
Again, that's that kind of jamminess, and I mean, the fruit in there would be a deeply kind of black curranted. That's definitely got that black currant.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say Ribena, but you know what I mean, kind of thing. And then I would say that has like a hint of cloves. The kind of.
Again, so much work.
Well, I mean, again, don't worry if you can't get these. It's not essential that you do. But this is what I would pick out from there. And sometimes it just does take that. When you're having a smell of wine, you think, you're kind of thinking, I know what it is, but I can't kind of say it, and it's on the tip of your tongue. And then when somebody else says it, you go, oh yeah. Not that you did. It's okay, I'm not offended. It's okay, I'll be fine. But I'm hoping throughout, we're going to go through a lot of wines. So I'm hoping we'll get there.
Are you going to train me?
We'll get there in the end. But yeah, so let's have a... See, that's all, the earthiness comes across as almost vegetative, like vegetables.
You put yours more through your right nostril than your left nostril.
I don't know why I do that.
Why do you do that?
I don't know why I do that. It's probably... I've never noticed that before. Praise in there, why do that? I've no idea. I'm very conscious of that from now on.
We need to check out our site. Any of you that are psychologists, give us an email and let us know why John breathes out of his, it smells with his right nostril.
Just a bit something, obviously something to do with childhood. Right, I'm going to have a look at this. Oh.
There's a whole lot of different tastes going on there. I can't identify them, but certainly they're, well, not completely, but very, very different.
Oh, very good. Again, it's moved up in the power again, which is good that it's worked that way. But the immediate one that I'm getting from there, and this is one which, you know, if you are trying something similar with us at home, it's vanilla. It's just, that for me is just almost pure vanilla. I could almost get that and nothing else. The immediate one that gets me, and then becomes that jamminess of fruit, and it's that the black currant has come through quite strongly for me there.
There's almost a power to volume relationship. I'm not having to drink as much to get the same sort of effect of taste.
Definitely not, no, because it's more intense. It's more the fruit is giving it obviously a more intense juice there, and as such you're getting so much more flavour from it, and you don't need a lot of that.
Sometimes I've heard people say when they look at a wine glass, they say, look at the legs on that. Meaning the amount.
Yeah.
Does that really matter?
I'm a bit dubious about that myself. There's kind of two camps on that one. Some people say it does. I personally don't think it makes that much difference at all. Not in a wine as such. Perhaps a more kind of fortified wine, as it's like a port kind of thing, sherry. That would make a difference, but not in a wine, or not for me. See, that again has got that length of flavour, and as that's kind of staying in my mouth more, I'm getting more from that. I said that leather that we had on the nose, that leather for me is really quite apparent now, and it has got, that's quite high in tannins as well. But then again, like we had on the second Cabernet Sauvignon we had this evening, where I said it would be well balanced, the kind of flavour outweighs as such the tannins, because the tannins are quite keen there. They are quite powerful.
I'm trying to identify leather. When you're talking about leather, you're talking about the sort of smell you get in a car that's got leather in it. Are you talking about a chamois leather type smell, or?
I'd say more the car leather. The more car, yeah.
Ford or Mercedes?
Mercedes, dear. No, it's a difficult one to explain, isn't it?
Well, it is if your partner can't grab it at the same time.
Are you getting leather at all from that? Don't worry if you can. I'll tell you. Right, again, as we're going through this, and we're going to be tasting lots of different wines, Rioja is a perfect example of kind of leather and oakiness, and when we get there, that might be a good place for you to try the leather, because honestly, that is probably the most apparent flavour in there for me, definitely. Rioja tends to be my favourite wine. I could wax lyrical about that all day long, and we will when that episode comes.
Excellent, good. But in the meantime...
But even then, see the tannins are still hanging around there, but it's not like overpowered, it's not it's not as offensive as, like they said, the first, the Argentinian one we had earlier, the actual wine was, I remember saying, quite thin. It didn't have the power of flavour there. So the tannins did overpower it, or it was kind of, it didn't spoil the wine as such, but it wasn't necessarily something I would particularly like. Whereas this one, although the tannins were in there, tannins is just as apparent as they were in the Argentinian, it doesn't spoil it because of the intensity of fruit from the actual wine, the flavour of the wine.
So again, I guess someone else may like the Argentinian, may not like it quite as robust, and
oh, definitely.
This doesn't it doesn't last any longer than the middle one, the one in episode 2.
No, and that is quite.
Sorry,
no, I don't think it does, because the second one, the Chilean, was particularly good anyway. But this is 2011, so this will have spent a fair amount of time in the oak as well. And I would have expected, for such a time in oak, the tannins would have softened out a lot more. Not that it's bothering me in any way, shape or form. I'm quite enjoying that.
I know, in terms of how long you should keep wine, because I mean, obviously, wine is certain wines you can keep and certain wines you can't keep.
Yeah.
So some wines you may have a very old, but actually it will be not.
Past it, yeah. Well, again, that can be fairly complex, and something we'll probably have to touch on another one. But generally, your red wines, I mean, they should. You've got at least 2 or 3 years on any red wine, even the kind of the young, barring the Gamay grape. Because some red wines are meant to be drunk very young. This one, however, I mean, we've got 2011 on this in particular one, for instance. I would say would stay in the bottle for 2011, so it's been about 3 years already. I would reckon this has got another 3 to 5 years on it. And then when it gets to a certain point, it starts to deteriorate. But there are some kind of vineyards and winemakers that produce wine purely so they can last for so long, and that would be a lot of the kind of the Bordeaux and these big name chateaus. Hence why they can command such a price. They're producing a wine which is meant to be laid down and to develop, and it's very clever and it's very difficult to actually do. Hence why they can command such a price. Yeah. But that's also a very good investment. Is your Bordeaux, these nice chateaus. You can pick up some very decent chateaus. Say 2011 again, which would be no good for really drinking now. And you can pick them up for £15 to £20, which alright sounds. It's not cheap as such, but then these things will lay down for maybe 20 years. And if you have the inclination and you have a wine cellar and you want to leave it there, and then you come back in those 20 years, you're talking about a lot of money. It is a lot of money.
Yeah, assuming you've made it 20 years.
Yeah, it's difficult, I can assure you. Many a time I've cracked into them, but it pays off.
But I guess you do need to have a proper cellar to be able to do that, because if it's just in the house, it's just not going to work. It decays.
Well, again, that's another one as well. When storing wine, one of the biggest mistakes is storing it in your kitchen. It doesn't so much matter.
Kitchen or anybody's.
Anybody's kitchen, only because the temperature fluctuates so much in anybody's kitchen. Wine doesn't have to particularly be kept kind of cool or cold as such. It just needs to be consistent. Obviously, you can't go too warm on it, but it doesn't matter keeping it that cold as long as it's consistent and you're not shifting the bottle about too much. That's.
So if there's any temperature change, just sort of very slowly, as long as you're going up and down.
I mean, that's why cellars do tend to be perfect, and our cellar here stays constant. I mean, in summer it feels like air conditioning, and in winter it feels like positively warm, but it stays constant temperature.
Yeah. Good.
Not that we keep wine down here for that long. So, to round it up there, what we've had this evening, the Argentinian, we've had a Chilean, and we've had the Australian. Now, if you were looking at starting on a Cabernet Sauvignon, which I would definitely recommend for those people who are trying to start on the red wines, I would say this evening I would go with the Chilean. The Chilean just sat in the middle there. I just thought the Argentinian was a little bit too light for a Cabernet Sauvignon. This Australian, although it's delicious and definitely something I would like, might be a bit too heavy to start on as such. So yeah, the Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon, definitely have a little go of that. And but once again, any questions, just email us and we'll go through that.
Absolutely, and keep your questions coming. Obviously, we'll use those to guide us through the series, so that we can make sure we're answering your questions as we go along, and we're being focused on what you'd like, because that's why we're here. So, well, fantastic wine. Thank you very much, John.
No, thank you, John.
And until the next one.
Until the next one. Chin chin.
Chin chin.